Everybody, welcome to Bill Whittle Live. 3 minutes behind the schedule here today on account of the fact that we just shot four right angles. The right angles are going to be kind of different this week. We decided we wanted to do something a little fresher. You know, we'd had a chance. Oh, wait, look at that. Let me fix this thing. We decided that we'd had a chance to do the show together with Stephen Scott. I did the show with Stephen Scott. I did CPAC with Steve. And I just did a couple days in Dallas with Scott. And altogether, that was really a lot of fun. So what we decided to do was we decided to make the right angle shows a lot more energetic is probably the best word for it. I'm going to fix this one more time, and then we'll be on our way. So if it seems like we're a little running around the bush here, it's because we are. We've been playing like crazy and just cranking out things. Everything good? Yeah. Oh, is this framing? I'll move it around. It doesn't matter. You know what? So today we're just going for it, folks. And the reason we're just going for it is this. We're going to be making some changes to this show as well. Going to clear a little space out for this. I don't know when. There we go. I don't know when we're going to be able to do it. Yeah, actually, you could pan me just a little bit if you get a chance, Neil. But somewhere in the not-too-distant future, we're going to start taking the show to doing more interviews. We've had a couple people say that they really enjoyed the interviews we did. Thank you. With NRA TV, I did a whole week of them last week with Grant Stinchfield's show, and I think the chance to mix it up a little bit will make it a little bit less like a, basically dark blue Stratosphere Lounge. But those things are in process and on their way. But as I said today, I've already done 5 segments, and I've got 1 or 2 more to do after this. So sorry about the delay. Sorry about the confusion. But welcome to the second worst produced show on the internet. Today's episode is called Trey Gowdy versus Washington. And that's basically what I want to talk about very kind of quickly today. Trey Gowdy was interviewing, interviewing is probably not the word, cross-examining is probably a better word, James Comey. And it was not so pretty to watch if you're James Comey. Trey Gowdy, the reason I wanted to talk about him for the whole half hour today is pretty simple, really. Trey Gowdy, in my mind, may be the last real American patriot that I've seen in Washington. I'll put Jason Chaffetz up there as well, and maybe 1 or 2 others. But Gowdy gives me hope. Gowdy gives me hope because Gowdy is relentless. It's nice that he's a bulldog, and that's important that he's a bulldog. But the main reason Gowdy gives me hope is that he has crystal clarity about the structure of this government, about the limitations of each part of the government's power. And he is a former prosecutor, so he is extremely adept at setting up questions. He will set the stage for a question and then leave you with simply no choice. There's nowhere to go when Trey Gowdy's finished with you. And that's what I like about the guy. I remember during the when he was doing the Hillary Clinton email investigations in Benghazi and all the rest. Look, he's made some mistakes. I understand that. But watching him doing the Hillary Clinton investigations gave me hope. And it gave me hope at a time when I didn't think that we were going to win this election. And I was shocked. Now, as you probably know by now, I have a Russian fiance. And one of the fun things about that is we get to, talk about all kinds of things that maybe we wouldn't get to talk about if you'd been born here. And one of the things that I got to talk about during the months leading up to the election in 2016 was the idea that there's still a person out there, still one, who could basically challenge the most powerful people in the world, that he could basically just say, no, I'm sorry, you don't get to do that. And when Trey Gowdy basically, during the Clinton thing, when Trey Gowdy said, I think the finest moment that I saw him, and he's been spectacular. But I recall when they were doing the investigation of the Hillary Clinton email leaks, and he'd been given, I'm going to just, from memory, I want to call them 502s. I'm not 100% sure that's right, but basically it's the name of the form that is a sort of a synopsis of how an FBI interview went. And Gowdy said, "Well, where are the 502s for Hillary Clinton's thing?" And the FBI guy, the junior guy they sent out there to catch the arrows that were intended for somebody higher up, was basically saying, "Well, Congressman, we didn't think we wanted to bother you with those. Most of those are pretty boring. And Gowdy basically said, you don't get to decide what is bothering me. I didn't come here for my job to be easy. You don't decide which documents the Congress of the United States gets to watch. We decide, not you. I want to see all of them. I want them all in here right away. And Chavez, to his credit too, I can really put these two almost together. When Chavez was basically talking to Comey again back in the fall, and he said, well, why didn't you check into this? And Comey said, well, we didn't have a mandate to do it. And Chavez said, do you need a subpoena? And he said, yes, that's exactly what we need. He says, you'll have it within an hour. These two men and maybe one or two others are, to me, the last bastions of what this country is about. Gowdy fights like a devil for the limitation of power. He fights like a demon for it, and he goes after people who are very powerful and have way overstepped their boundaries in terms of their constitutional authority. And at the same time, he has an incredible amount of pride in the power of the Congress, and that's something I haven't seen in a long, long time. Gowdy's ability to simultaneously take apart people who are exceeding their constitutional powers and at the same time celebrate the actual constitutional powers that he has as a congressman it's a civics lesson. I mean, the guy's just schoolhouse rock with a bad haircut. And Trey, I adore you. I do. We got to get somebody to do a little bit of styling here, and I would vote for you for president. I'd vote for you for anything you wanted to run for. So we just saw Trey Gowdy questioning James Comey earlier, and Comey was, as usual, very careful and very professional and so on. And Trey Gowdy was asking questions that were setting him up, and basically ran out of time. He said, well, we'll see you in the next session, Mr. Director. So you have to ask yourself, first of all, you have to ask yourself why James Comey still has a job. Now, James Comey may be the best director in the history of the FBI. I suspect that's not the case, but let's say that he is. Let's say that James Comey is the best director in the history of the FBI. Why is this guy still the head of the FBI? Nobody on the left trusts him because they claim that he basically interfered with the election to throw it to Trump. Nobody on the right trusts him because there's a lot of people that feel that he's preventing evidence, that he's holding back evidence that would be beneficial to Trump and leaking evidence that would be harmful to Trump. So he's basically distrusted by both sides. And frankly, that's kind of his job, isn't it? I mean, the director of the FBI is not a guy who basically looks at case by case and says, well, we should assign such and such agent to this. No, he's the face of the FBI. He's not just a public relations guy. I understand that. But as we all know, my dad was a hotel manager, and the tone of any organization comes from the top down, always. It's the executive on top that sets the tone. And if you have a restaurant that's spotlessly clean and the people are friendly, it's because the managers decided it has to be that way. Likewise, if you have one where people are just laying around and rude and slow and they don't care how long it takes you to get your dinner, it's not their problem. The fewer they serve, the better they like it. That's also comes from the top. So the FBI is a mess. The CIA is a mess. All of our intelligence services are a mess. They've been completely politicized. So has the IRS. So has the State Department. And IRS, State Department gets a new head. The Pentagon gets a new head. EPA gets a new head. All of these people get a new head. Even Comey's boss is new in terms of Sessions. But why he's still there is a mystery to me. I don't know who's where's his constituency? And you may say that the FBI director doesn't need a constituency, but where's the section of the population that believes in the integrity of the FBI, and that when James Comey says something, you can take it as gospel? I don't think there's anybody in the country left who believes that. Even if, as I said, if he's a terrific administrator, fantastic, he should have to go just for the optics of it. And I am quite surprised and quite shocked that Donald Trump has basically kept this guy in the position he's in. I find that extremely, extremely interesting and a little bit worrisome. But back to Gowdy. I don't want this so much to be about Trey Gowdy as a person, although given the scarcity of people like Trey Gowdy as a person, it might as well be just about him as a person. What I love about watching Trey Gowdy is watching what this country is supposed to be in action. That's what I like. I like watching what this country is supposed to be in action. And since we got a late start today, Neil, I'm doing a half an hour. We'll run this one all the way through on Facebook, and That's courtesy of the members at BillWhittle.com who've often said do that. That's very kind for people to give up, stuff that they've paid for so that everybody else can enjoy it. But that's what we're going to do today. So thanks again to our members out there. Gowdy, as I said, represents America in action. And as I alluded to earlier, I have a Russian fiance, and I sat there and explained to her that what she was seeing was an elected representative of the people who was now challenging the most powerful people in the world, challenging Barack Obama's administration, challenging the Justice Department, challenging Hillary Clinton, calling them out, basically saying to them, "You work for us, okay? You don't keep secrets from the Intelligence Oversight Committee. You don't get to tell us what we see and don't see. We tell you that we see what we don't see, and we want to see everything." And watching those agents just sort of melt made me happy. I know the FBI is filled with a lot of really terrific people, but this politicization of it is just got to stop. And during the Hillary Clinton email server hearings, you could just see they look like hostages, some of these FBI assistant directors out there. So what we've got now is we've got a kind of a battle between a guy who seems to me to understand this Constitution and the powers of the Congress, and who is who strikes me as somebody who is so morally committed to the idea of America that he has become a bulldog and he's not going to let go. And I like the fact that he's not going to let go of anybody, including Republicans. If he finds something going on our side that needs to be rooted out and explained and prosecuted, then go for it, Trey. I think of the things that I like the most about Trey Gowdy, aside from the moral position he takes and the clear understanding that he has of the Constitution, I have watched him, and I think the thing that I like most about him is his delivery. Trey Gowdy will set up a question or ask a rebuttal question, and it's as precise as a scalpel. And he will say things like, have you ever, have you ever been through jury selection process? And somebody will say yes. And I say, well, I have too. As a prosecutor, I've been through that many times. And what I found was, and he'll start laying out what the situation is supposed to be. It's not by, he's not doing it by rote. He's doing it out of a love for the understanding of the Constitution, and he understands this thing, and I just would vote for him in a heartbeat, because that's exactly what I want in a president. I want somebody who's strong. I want somebody who's articulate, somebody who understands the rules of all of this, understands where all the pieces should be and what fits together in what way, and is determined as a tiger to make sure that nobody oversteps their boundaries or understeps them either. And that's something we never talk about. We never talk about understepping your boundaries. And that's essentially what Congress has done for the last 8 years, right? They have rolled over to the executive branch, and they simply just go along with it. Barack Obama decides he wants to implement immigration reform, some huge thing. I've decided I'm going to do this through executive order. And Congress goes on with it. They go along with it. That's understepping your boundaries. That's understepping your responsibility for things. You have an obligation to use the power that the people have given you in a case like that. So he's not just going after people who use too much power. He's using people who don't use the power that they've been given. Now, I'm getting a couple comments here that are saying we're cutting out every now and then, or quite a bit on the audio or the feed or whatever. It's looking good on this end, folks, but if that's happening, I'm sorry. We'll take a look at it. We've got really good internet connection here finally. We got it a couple years ago, but it's very solid. And if it turns out that we're having hiccups out there, I don't know whether that's the fault of our feed or Facebook, the way it got set up, or whatever the case may be, but we're looking pretty strong here signal-wise, right? Yeah. So sorry about that. Anyway, this is basically, the entire rant for the day. When I was explaining to my fiance that a guy who was elected by people in a state, who was one of 435 representatives, and who has not been an insider in any way, who doesn't appear to have anyway huge reserves of money or political pull or influence. He's somebody that the people of a state sent to the Congress, and because he understands the power of that, he understands the responsibility of it too, and he acts on it. He understands in a way that almost no Americans do, and many members of Congress don't understand either. He understands that in the United States of America, there are 535 people that live in a democracy, and that's all. 535 Americans live in a democracy. 435 of them are in the House, and another 100 of them are in the Senate. And the decisions that those 435 plus 100 individuals make determine what happens to the lives of the rest of us and determine the course of human history because of the power of this country. And the power of this country comes from this particular kind of government. The idea that a congressman can just come in and subpoena and call the most heavily connected, the most corrupt people and put them on a stand, and not just individuals like Hillary Clinton either, or Loretta Lynch, who withered under Gowdy. Withered. You could I've never seen anybody do a tap dance so obviously in politics. He just destroyed her. Of course she's lying, and for me to explain to my fiance, who's so used to the power politics of Russia, so used to the fact that the powerful and the well-connected always win, always. They don't get into politics in Russia. After she'd been here just for a very short time, we watched the first debate. She was amazed. It was like it's a football game. Everybody's cheering and yelling. I said, yeah, why wouldn't we? Well, what good does that do? It's like, well, we want our side to win. And she was amazed that you would actually be able to get excited about politics because you had a sense that you could change the outcome. So we did change the outcome. Donald Trump's election is a lightning bolt, just an absolute lightning bolt through history. And it's a result of the American people who've had about enough of these clowns in Washington taking all of the money that we make and spending it on things that we simply do not know and cannot keep track of, and they can't keep track of either. It's just become an avalanche, Washington, right? It's a snowball that started as a budget, and started as money that had to be collected and allocated for limited purposes of the government. And every single year, this snowball got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's turned into an avalanche now. Nobody understands it, and nobody can control it. Doesn't that bother you? It scares the daylights out of me. It's true. We have something like $2 trillion, $2,000 billion in what we call non-discretionary spending. And when you ask a politician what that means, they will tell you, well, we can't touch that money. What? What do you mean you can't touch that money? No, we can't touch that money. That money is part of entitlements, and we have no control over it. Well, who does have control over it? I mean, it's $2,000 billion every single year that's being taken off the backs of people like you and me. And if it's going to be taken from us, $2,000 billion of the $3,500 billion they take every year, you're telling me that no one controls this? No one can stop it? That's what they'll tell you. No, we can't touch it. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't understand it. I mean, look, I get the mechanics of it. I understand, well, we made promises and these entitlements are blah, 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 blah. But you are the people that put the entitlements there. Somebody put them there. Somebody can take them away, right? Somebody can reduce them. Somebody can make them means tested. Somebody can do something. You say that this is non-discretionary spending and we can't control it. My response to you is then who does control it? Who controls it? And if nobody controls it, and that's the answer, by the way, if nobody controls it, then it is a force of nature. It is an out-of-control avalanche. It's a black hole. It sucks up money, and the more money it sucks up, the stronger it gets, the more powerful its gravity becomes, and the more money it sucks up. And nobody knows where it's spent, and nobody knows where it's going. Everybody knows where it's coming from, but nobody knows where it's going. And we have bills, legislation that are this thick on a good day, and in the case of Obamacare, go from the floor to the ceiling because, not in spite of the fact that nobody knows where the money came from, but because of the fact that nobody wants to know where the money is going. That's why those bills are unreadable. Somebody, when Obamacare passed, there was some Democratic congressman or something who said that he's read all of Obamacare, and somebody said, "Sir, you're lying." He said, "How dare you call me a liar?" He said, "Because I've done the page count, sir. And for you to have read Obamacare from cover to cover, you'd have to be reading for 8 hours a day for 93 days or something like that." That bill hadn't even been in effect that long, and it's unreadable. It's impenetrable. Our laws now are made by clerks, by assistants to congressmen who write one paragraph or two paragraphs of a bill that contains thousands and thousands of pages, and nobody knows what it means. All they know is that a certain number is going to come out of the Treasury and going to go to certain places, but they don't know what it means. They can't stop it. So if they can't stop it and they can't control it, then how can they possibly be our representatives, right? If you vote for a bill as a congressman or as a senator, rather as a representative or a senator, if you can't understand it and you vote for it, how is that not a violation of your oath of office? How is it not a violation? Why shouldn't you be just keel-hauled for this, prosecuted for this? You're making votes that affect the lives of 320 million Americans here and billions of people around the world. You're making a vote on something that you've never understood, and at the same time, you are taking away people's additional trucks that they were going to buy to put more jobs on the market. You're taking away their expansions for their homes. You're taking away college education. You're taking away maybe a flat screen TV. You're taking all of this stuff from people, and you claim that it's for a worthy cause to keep this government of ours running, and you can't tell me where the money is going. At the very least, you can't tell me how to stop it or control it. It's out of control. It's unstoppable. It's non-discretionary. We can't control this money. We can't touch it. Says who? Says who? Who says that you can't touch this money? Where does that come from? Where does it come from? None of these things are in the Constitution, so we can't look there for it. But somebody put these programs in place, and somebody is writing the laws that allow them to take about half of what most of us who work hard in this country produce. So if it turns out that money is going to Washington and the representatives of the people cannot control it, then how is that any different than it being taxed by King George or by King Tralfamador on the planet Tralfamador? He's probably Weezix the second on Tralfamador. If he's going to come here in flying saucers and haul our money away without representation, we'd have a right to be a little upset about that, right? But if we have representation and the representatives are not allowed to act on something as fundamental as the budget, if it is literally out of their hands, then they're not representatives. And we don't have a republic, and we don't have any of those things that we think are pretty swell. We just have a gigantic, enormous tick. That's what we have. We've got a tick on our backs or on our scalps, and it's bigger than we are, and it gets bigger every day, and no one knows how to stop it. No one knows how. Don't you find that terrifying? It's one thing if people say, look, we've got this money dedicated and we have to keep spending it because if we don't, these bad things will happen. Okay, that's still wrong, but at least there's somebody at the levers. But when you hear people say it's non-discretionary spending and no one can cut it, you're basically admitting that this entire country is a runaway train. And that's what it is. It's a runaway train. There's no one at the wheel, or at the levers rather, up in the front. There's no conductor. There's no engineer. No one is in charge of anything. It's just going down a hill faster and faster, and it's got its own momentum, and its momentum is unbelievable. The mass. Think of the mass of $3,500 billion every year. This gigantic avalanche of money every year, and no one can change its course, and no one can slow it down, and no one can stop it. What the hell are we doing? What kind of country is this? I mean, third world countries have the ability, I would imagine, to be able to control the budget. At least a dictator or somebody can say, no, I don't want to spend that on this, spend it on my gold toilets in my palace. At the least you can say he's got some control over this thing. It's not on its own, but this is it's a catastrophe. And because we can't control these things, and because this money just comes out of the big vast unknown and heads into the big vast unknown, with certain salaries, deductions, and retirement plans being taken out of it, needless to say, because of the life of public service that these people have been giving to us. It's not a republic. It's not even a government. That's kind of where I'm trying to go with this. It's not only not a republic, it's not even a government. If the people who are running the government cannot control the majority of what the government spends, if it's out of their reach, then it's not even a government. It's not even a kleptocracy. If the people who are doing this money are stealing it and no one can control how much it gets spent or where or why, then it's not even a kleptocracy. It's an automatic self-generating gigantic black hole of mass, of money that's moving, and no one has any say in it whatsoever. So what does this have to do with Trey Gowdy? Well, when I listen to Trey Gowdy speak, and when I watch Trey Gowdy cross-examine witnesses and put people on the crosshairs and basically make them squirm and make it clear to everybody and all around the world that whether or not this guy admits that he's lying, he's lying. When people like Loretta Lynch are under cross-examination and he says something to the effect of, I wish I had this actual transcript in front of me, was this a crime? Well, you would have to ask a prosecutor about that. And then Gowdy or Chavez, I don't remember which one, because again these two are very, very close. When that person says, all right, Miss Lynch, if the speed limit is 50 miles an hour and I'm doing 60 miles an hour, am I breaking the law? And the highest law enforcement official in the country, cannot say, yes, you're breaking the law. When she says, well, that would depend on the officer who is doing the, you'd have to consult the officer who is doing the arrest. Then they come back with, no, we're not talking about arrest. We're not talking about prosecution. We're talking about a simple definition. If it's a 50 mile an hour speed limit and I'm doing 60 in a 50 mile an hour speed limit, am I breaking the law, yes or no? And she wouldn't answer it. And the reason she wouldn't answer it is because if she does answer it, there's only one answer, and everybody knows what the answer is. The answer is, of course you're breaking the law. But if the Attorney General of the United States were to admit that breaking the law was breaking the law, then all of a sudden we wouldn't be able to wiggle our way out of all these other things that have been going on. We wouldn't be able to make it morally relativistic. When she says, well, whether or not it's a law or not, is going to be dependent on the arresting officer. It's not going to have anything to do with the arresting officer. It doesn't need an arresting officer. It doesn't need anybody. It's a tree that falls in the forest and goes boom. Look, it's a law I break every single day. I break it every single day, but it is a law. And if I get caught breaking the law, I don't pretend that the law isn't there. And I don't say, well, I guess it really kind of depends on where we are and what we're. No, it's a law. It's a law. It's a rule. I break it every day. Most people do. I do it because I think the speed, by the way, parenthetically, I break the law because the speed limit applies to the worst driver in the most poorly maintained car on the road, right? They can't assign speed limits to people based on their reflexes, on their driving capability. Can't base it on whether they're driving defensively. Can't base it on whether or not they know what's going on out there. The speed limit is designed for the worst driver in the worst car, and I'm not either of those two things. That's my personal justification for the safety of it, but it's not justification for the illegality of it. Of course it's the law, and of course I'm breaking the law. I break it every day, and so do you, every day. So if I get caught for it, then I pay my penalty. And out here, I don't know what it is back where you guys might be still in America, but out here, a traffic ticket now is $300-400, something like that, $400-600 sometimes. But it's the law. I broke it. If I'm caught, I have responsibility for having broken the law, and I have to be punished, and that's how it works. But Loretta Lynch, the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, could not say that doing 60 in a 50 zone is breaking the law, as I said. And if she did say that, then that would mean everything else is breaking the law, and that's where Gowdy had her. He said he had her, Gowdy and Chavez together had her in a place where she had basically said that somebody had done this behavior. And they'd also said that the law prohibits this behavior. And Loretta Lynch would not put the two together because if she did, the entire progressive agenda falls apart. Did this person commit these acts? Yes, they did. Are these acts against the law? Yes, they are. Is this person guilty of violating this law? It depends. No, it doesn't depend on anything, you idiot. You're not an idiot, by the way, Loretta Lynch. You're not an idiot. You're just an evil, power-hungry clown who thinks that your political persuasion allows you to destroy the most magnificent thing that's ever been placed on this earth, the thing that freed your people, all of it. No. And by the way, I just fell into the same trap that the 8 years of Obama fed me into. That's not our people. The people are the American people. I misspoke myself there. So Trey Gowdy versus Washington is not just Trey Gowdy versus Washington. It's Trey Gowdy versus gravity. It's Trey Gowdy versus entropy. It's Trey Gowdy versus history. It's Trey Gowdy versus human nature. It's Trey Gowdy versus the ease of doing the wrong thing as opposed to the effort required to do the right thing. It's Trey Gowdy out there on the beach building sandcastles as the waves come in and wash them away, and he simply doesn't stop. He just keeps doing it. That's why I admire this man so much, and that's why I think he would make a superb president. I think he'd make a superb anything he damn well wants to be. And if we had more people like him, and by the way, we wouldn't need a whole lot more people like him. We wouldn't need a whole lot more. If we just had a few more who were using the powers that the Constitution gave them to correct, identify, prosecute, and punish those people in the government who are breaking the law. All we need is another 3 or 4 people like that, and people will behave themselves. But we don't have them. And so it's one man doing his best to try and keep this government honest, because it's based on honesty. So this government works. It's how this whole idea works. I know that's a shocking concept to our friends on the left, that you would require honesty and virtue to have a government like this, because they think it just requires money taken from other people. But you don't get the money from other people until those other people make money. And they don't make money until they have a sense of trust and a sense of fair play and a sense that there are rules and people will obey the rules. And if the government is not going to enforce those rules, then they stop playing the game. And likewise, if the government's going to take half of everything they make and just basically piss it away on things that, where'd it go? I don't know. How much did you spend? I don't know. Well, why didn't you stop spending so much? We can't. What do you mean you can't? No, we can't touch it. Nobody can touch it. What the hell is this? It's not a government. It's not even a country. It's an aneurysm. It's a tumor. It's any one of these out of control biological deformities that no longer function in any meaningful way. They don't function. They're not organs anymore. They're tumors. They're things that grow for the sake of growing. That's actually not a bad example, come to think of it, because a tumor doesn't do you any good. You know, it doesn't help you filter poisons, and it doesn't help you see things or hear things. It doesn't help you digest food. A cancer doesn't do any of that. A tumor is something that exists only to grow. That's all the tumor does. It doesn't do anything else. It simply grows. And that is what we are dealing with now. We are dealing with a government and a treasury system, a tax system that is so big and so anonymous and so enormously complex that people can get away with anything, and it's a tumor. What does the federal government do? It grows. But what does it provide? Well, it provides some services, but it only provides the services as an excuse to continue growing, and not the other way around. So Trey Gowdy, I know you're not watching this, but if you are, and if anybody ever knows you know how to reach Trey Gowdy, you tell him I think that he and Jason Chavez, Ted Cruz, maybe a few others, Louis Gomer, pretty much do them on one hand. You are making a stand against crashing waves of history and entropy. You are out there every day fighting for order, fighting for law, fighting for responsibility, fighting for reason, fighting for accountability, fighting for everything that we need to have in order for this society to continue. And you have my undying respect. And the reason you have my undying respect is because that's what I feel like I'm doing here on a much smaller scale. That's what I'm fighting for here. So I'm fighting for the rule of law and order and accountability and a government that responds to the will of the people and a government that functions as an organ that does a specific purpose for the people. That's what the purpose of this organ is to do this for the good of the people, and these are the things that we're allowed to do, and it's not there simply to grow and take more money. How we're going to stop this, I don't know. I don't know. But it's going to take people like Jason Chavez and Louis Gomer and Trey Gowdy and a lot more of them to finally just say, this is done. We're finished with this. It's the largest theft. It's the largest heist in the history of the world. And it's coming to an end now because I am a lawman and I enforce the law. And the law is what makes civilization and not savagery. There's no higher calling, I think, than to be somebody who enforces a fairly written and just set of laws. So there we go. All right, that's Trey Gowdy versus Washington for the day. As I say, we're going to make some changes to the show. It's not going to happen quite right away, but I am going to be wanting to do more interviews and mix it up a little bit and maybe, get a little more dynamic. But that's a coming, like everything else. So thank you again for your support. All of this stuff is made possible by a small group of people who believe it's important and who think it's worth 33 cents a day. Not just for themselves, they think it's worth 33 cents a day for the American people to hear this message, if for no other reason than to remind those of you out there that you're not alone, that the common sense is not vanished, and that you're not crazy, and that you're not the only person who thinks that, these things are true. They are true, and we can prove it. So if you'd like to become a member at BillWhittle.com and join the team, it's a bunch of happy warriors here, and we're good at what we do. So if you can help us, we'd appreciate it, and I think it'd be good for the country, and I think it'd be good for you too. That's certainly what we get from our members. So in any event, that's that. We will be back tomorrow. I've got the morning is more or less clear, so I think we'll actually be on time tomorrow and be a little straightened up. And we'll start to make some changes on the show as much as we possibly can. But until then, on behalf of the members at BillWhittle.com, this is Bill Whittle Live. Thanks very much for joining us today. Thanks for our members for extending this for our Facebook viewers. And we will see you all tomorrow.